about 1,900,000 files.
What was the nature of the crimes that they were judging?
Genocide and crimes associated with it. And we shall have a report of who was judged for which crime, where, what they were doing, the details of each individual that was involved in this will get out on June 16th this year. So you can imagine more than 1 million convictions, and then all you have in prison about 38,000. So the rest have been reintegrated into the community. So you're talking maybe more than 90% of the people convicted are home. They have been reintegrated into the communities.
How has it addressed the question of reconciliation if they have been reintegrated into the community and this was a question of much of it forgiveness?
This is that's the beauty of Gacaca, because I told you traditionally, even in the old days, it had those elements. You punish the wrongdoer, right? You restore the dignity of the victim, and then you reconcile them. So what happened in actual practice? That when these people are released, they don't go home straight. They're first prepared through different ways. Those that go into solidarity camps, and even then before, when they're still in prison, usually there is a way they have communicated with their victims. Their families have come to visit them in prison or in solidarity camps, and they have said sorry about this. And they have volunteered the whole information of what happened. And they have told them where their loved ones are buried, and they have apologized. So by the time you get out, the other family has already forgiven you.
Are there cases of hostilities resuming once the people, the society returns to the communities?
Yes, indeed. You cannot rule it out altogether. You see, even when you have forgiven, the scar of that trauma is still in your heart. You may not even have forgiven in terms of totality, but you have learned how to live with that. You have realized that killing this guy is not going to bring back your loved one, so you accept them back. So people live with this kind of balanced contradiction between their inner feeling and what probably they would have wished to happen.
Your Gacaca courts are going to be coming to a close, though, in June, as you mentioned earlier. Where does this leave the Gacaca system? What will replace that? Has it dealt with all the cases that it was supposed to deal with conclusively, would you say?
We believe that the Gacaca has dealt with all the cases that have come to light, and that there are no outstanding cases at all. But like every system, there could be problems and spillovers. And so when the Gacaca closes, what happens? If there are still some problems, some spillovers from that, what do? So the plan is that there will be put in place a system that will address the post-Gacaca type of problem that could arise up. So there is a law, a draft law, that's going to close Gacaca and also provide avenues for any spillover issues that may come up. It has left us a wonderful legacy. It has shown us that the Rwandans can have their own local initiative to sort out a problem that the whole world would have thought there was no possible solution. I would want to invite you to go to any prison in Rwanda. You'll find these prisoners outside. You'll find them sometimes dancing or singing. You'll find them making baskets, woodworks, carpentry business, whatever. And you'll find there are no armed guards around them. And you'll find them walking without, what do they call them? Handcuffs. So what does this tell you about people's attitude towards their justice? So this tells you the people, the convicts, have confidence in their system. They know, they have seen by example that when they finish their sentence, they'll go home and they'll be welcomed.
Rwanda also pursued another judicial process, the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. What's your view on that?
You know that tribunal is also closing. That tribunal has done, shall I say, a mixture of things. On one hand, it has helped us to judge the people that would never have been able to judge at all. The ICTR was able, through its international mandate, to access those prisoners. Some of the worst, some of the planners, is a very good thing indeed. Second, the ICTR has been able, through its international mandate, again, to do extensive research. And so we have now the best precedent on genocide in the world today, the best jurisprudence on genocide law and the crime of genocide that has ever existed before. So anybody now wants to do research, wants to know more about, they now have a resource base. 3, the ICTR has been able to make the crime against the Rwandan people an international crime. The crime of genocide, it's a crime not against Rwanda only, but against the entire mankind. So those 2 areas are very important for us when we look at achievements of ICTR. But it has had its own problem. First of all, the fact that they couldn't set it up here means that it has become a very costly and detached justice. So it has used huge resources for just a limited number of. So when I talk about close to 2 million dossiers treated by Gacaca, courts in Rwanda, and maybe 15,000 cases tried by the ordinary courts in Rwanda, compared to about 60 cases in the ICTR over a period of 10 years, you can imagine. 2, they are so detached that sometimes they make decisions that are abhorring, decisions that have left people here shocked and horrified, decisions that say on the biggest plan of genocide, Tharcisse Bagosola, decisions like those have horrified this nation. And where somebody is known by every child, every walking past, as the worst guy here, the ICTR has treated them, some of them with kid gloves. And so this has left people here in anguish, in a total frustration. So therefore, in conclusion, whereas ICTR has had a good role to play, there is a lot that you can say against its performance. Huge budget with very minimum results show for it.
The ICTR, though, recently transferred one of its cases to Rwanda. How significant is that for Rwanda's justice system?
This is very, very important for us because, as I said, genocide was committed by Rwandans against the Rwandan people. So the natural home for this kind of justice would be Rwanda. But the ICTR has had its mandate. But in that mandate, there was the provision for transfer. But they have always in the past hesitated to transfer, I would say, on so many excuses. One about this, about that, about quality of justice here. So you got the impression, I don't know whether that's right, but people here and elsewhere in the world felt that the fellows in Arusha were just perpetuating their jobs. They did not want to send the people here because they wanted to keep their job. That was what many people believe. That could be a perception, that could be the truth. I have no idea, I have not done a research on it to say it one way or the other. But the feeling here was that these guys were not transferring because they wanted to remain there. That could be false, that could be a perception. But at the end of the day, what are we having? At the end of the day, they have now said, no, the conditions in Rwanda are okay. The legal system has come of age. After all, the special court for the UN Special Court for Sierra Leone has sent all its prisoners to serve their sentence in Rwanda because the UN visited this prison here and found it one of the best in the world. So they transferred all the prisoners in Mpanga prison in southern Rwanda. 2, the Supreme Court of Sweden made a decision in the case of Silvera Horugeze, to transfer him to Rwanda. Because they said again, the conditions in Rwanda were good and grown and good enough to try that guy. This guy appealed to the European Court of Human Rights. Still, the European Court of Human Rights confirmed that decision that he should be transferred here to Rwanda to face trial because the system here had become of age. It was fair and transparent. The Supreme Court of Norway also ordered the transfer of Charles Bandora, another genocide suspect, to be tried here, and the reasoning was the same, that the system here was fair, transparent, and that justice would be got from here. But Czech Canada has done the same thing in the case of Mugesera to bring him here. So we believe the world has now come to realize that the conditions exist here that will create a fair, transparent trial. So we believe the decision of ICTR to transfer Zhao Nkindi here is a sign of the confidence growing up in the judicial system here. In total, therefore, we believe that the country now is positioned itself in the eyes of the world as a fair country, as a country where you can do business, as a country where genocide was committed, but the country has pulled itself out of that sad history and is a country on the move with hope for a much brighter future.
This is dialogue where ideas do matter.
Former UN Secretary General, though, Kofi Annan said at the time that the UN could have done more for Rwanda. Do you think that world leaders have learned anything from the genocide and the situations in Rwanda?
We believe that the world has learned. But who is the world? What is the world? It's individuals. I think policymakers in all countries in the world have learned. But as to whether that will impact on them is a different matter. But they know the failure of the UN in Rwanda when it abandoned the Rwandan people to be slaughtered by their colleagues. They pulled out the troops they have. That's the biggest betrayal that an international body could commit against the country. That's one. Two, that when Annan said that, he was conscious of the fact that at the time he was head of the peacekeeping operations, the UN operations were under his charge. And he dismally failed. There's no doubt about that. And he failed to execute his duty when he had the opportunity. But we believe that policymakers in the world have now learned a bit better. We've seen them intervening in Sudan, southern Sudan, where we have our troops under the UN AU mandate. They have intervened in Somalia. So yes, I think they have learned lessons. As to whether they'll put them all to good use is not within my competence to guess.
I want to get your final comment on an African issue. Now, the International Criminal Court has opened cases in several African countries now, Kenya, DR Congo, Uganda. What lessons are being learned by these countries from the Rwanda's dual judicial systems?
It's really very hard for me to answer this question. I can only confirm that Rwanda is not a signatory to that treaty. Rwanda has reservations about the mission of the ICC. Rwanda recognizes the ideals, the idealism embedded in the ICC statute, the mission, the goals, the ideal that it is supposed to serve. Because there has been a tendency of a Western type of judicial hegemony, judicial drive to control other continents or other continents, other citizens. So you find up to date, apart from this guy in former Yugoslavia, the rest of the guys are Africans. So it becomes, I have not seen any big guy in Europe being introduced before that court.
Do you think it is selective justice?
I don't want to make any blanket accusation against anybody. I would just say that from what I read and see, because at least I'm able to watch television, I'm already able to read, I see that some places, the thing that some leaders have done would amount to war crimes or to crimes against humanity, but I have not had any ICC indictments against them. So we are not satisfied, we are not sure, but we're keeping a very close eye. We watch the developments in that court, and when a moment comes when we are satisfied that the ICC is living to its mandate, is living to its ideal, is living to its mission, then I think we'll then join it.
Final comment from you. Today, 18 years after the genocide, where is Rwanda? Where are the Rwandan people psychologically, socially, politically?
Socially, the Rwandan people are liberated. I think politically, they have exceeded the expectations of most observers. So this is a country that was in ashes just 1994. And yet today, this is a country that has moved from the 157th position in the World Doing Business Report Index to 45th. Our million development goals, the UN Millennium Goals, have been achieved, most of them even before the time set. Our annual growth rate has been sometimes 2 digits, but has been consistent over the years above 7% growth rate. There is an enthusiasm to work harder, to achieve, to transform this country into a middle-income country by 2020. Politically, the people are aware. There's a lot of nationalism coming up. There is a lot of people are starting to feel that they need to have their country as a special country, that they need to build it, that they need to have it as number one in everything they do. So this is coming up slowly. So socially, psychologically, and politically, the country is at peace. The country is moving forward.
Honourable Minister, thank you very much. Thank you.